to order, please. And the first order of business is to approve the minutes of the prior
I'll make that
month's
motion.
meeting. Supervisor McDevitt made the motion, seconded by Supervisor Garrity. Any additions or corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Next, we have a request for transfers of funds as attached for the committee approval.
I'll move it.
Supervisor Garrity made the motion, seconded by Supervisor Molino. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Recuse.
Okay. We'll show it that way. All right. Then approved. All right, thank you. We will move on to a request, number 2, a request to establish Reserve A917.00, assigned fund balance SUNY Adirondack Operations in the amount of $150,000 for the purpose of funding Warren County share of SUNY Adirondack operating costs. And Mr. Swan is here to fill us in on that.
This is part of the budget that was approved last year, and this is to just establish the account to put the money into. This is part of Frank's, all of those reserves that were created. This is just to create, we have the money, it's budgeted, we just need to put it into the proper account.
All right, so someone like to make that motion? Supervisor Garrity, seconded by Supervisor Beatty. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Recused.
Okay, thank you. Carried. Thank you, Mr. Swan. Number 3, referrals from the County Facilities Committee, Airport. A, request to establish capital project H399 Airport Snow Sweeper in the amount of $640,000. Supervisor McDevitt makes the motion. A second to that.
I'll second.
Right, Supervisor Strout. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. B, a request to authorize an appropriation from Budget Code A892.00 Airport Repair and Projects to Budget Code A.9950910 Transfers Capital Projects in the amount of $64,000 to cover the 10% local share amount. Supervisor Molino is making the motion. A second to that motion. Supervisor McDevitt. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Number 4, referral from the Economic Growth and Development and Higher Education Committee, Planning. Request to delegate authority to the county administrator to authorize contract approvals, budget amendments, and expenditures up to a cumulative total of $99,798 to effectuate the census outreach project with the county administrator to report back to the Economic Growth and Development and Higher Education Committee on all actions taken. This is what we discussed earlier, correct?
Correct, yeah. Just a clarification, the ask would be for it to be retroactive to today, and I'd also like some guidance from the committee. We have $25,000 expense authority right now. How much of that, if we spend money before we get the award letter, the county is going to be on the hook for that money. So how high do you want me to go if we have expenses that we need to make before we get the award letter?
All right, so should we make the motion?
Sorry.
No, I just wanted to make sure. All right, would someone like to make that motion? Supervisor Strauss, seconded by Supervisor Molino. All right, now discussion time. Mr. Strauss.
Yeah, right, what's the timetable? I mean, expenditure-wise versus anticipation of receiving the funds, if they get approved. We assume they are, but...
The state backed up the date to when we can't get reimbursed for anything that occurs before we get the award letter, the process to get the award letter. So the state has, I think you may have missed, I'll go through it quickly. The state now has a requirement that 75% of the funding goes through not-for-profits. We're trying, which is not practical in our case. We're trying to get that waived, or to at least have libraries considered not-for-profits so we could do it the way it was intended to be done. All of the not-for-profits that participate currently need to get pre-qualified by the state. So far, none of our not-for-profits are interested in applying for the pre-qualification. As after the pre-qualification happens, then we have to redo our expense plan, that $100,000 plan, to make 75% of it go through not-for-profits. We have to put that plan into the request for applications that the state has put out, and then the state will have a back-and-forth review with us, being reviewed by Department of Labor. ESD is the source of the funding. The governor's office is controlling the process, but Department of Labor staff are going to review our RFA input and have a back and forth with them, and whenever that process is done, they can't tell me when that's going to be done, is when we would get the award letter.
Beautiful.
Well,
Any questions?
Yes,
No
Supervisor
questions.
Gary?
well, I think we ought to give Ryan the authority to move ahead with whatever expenses they deem feasible without coming back second guessing his opinion, because we had a committee put together, I believe Sarah was on it. They had a pretty good idea what some of the costs were gonna be, and I think we ought to let them move ahead. Census is important to the county, and even though the state of New York is pulling back and making it a lot harder, I still think we need to go ahead with it, and I think we ought to give Ryan the authority up to $50,000 before he has to come back to committee and ask for any more. I mean,
Yeah, let me
You
know that
Supervisor Stroud?
my resolution supports what Supervisor Garrity had just clarified.
Okay. Supervisor Molino? All right. Any other discussion? Did you want input from Mr. Swan, because you mentioned that?
If he has input.
I would just, well, I'm never happy about sidestepping our purchasing policies.
You and me both.
It seems like, you know, if we can do it under one-time exceptions, I should say, then okay. The other thing this is extremely important to get the census done and done right. It means a lot, and I would recommend that we just proceed under the idea that we're not going to get any money back. Let's just do it, get it done right, and if we get any money back from the state, we get it. I mean, it's like Supervisor McGowan said earlier, they had 9 years to figure this out, and here we are at the 25th hour, and they haven't got it done right yet. So that would just be my thought on it. Do whatever, spend what we need to spend to get it done and get it done right. If we get money back from the state, we get it back.
How does the committee feel about that?
Seems to make sense to me. Yep.
All right, Supervisor McGowan?
I just wanted to add on to what Mike Swan said and what I said earlier, but, you know, the stalling process really goes back and benefits the state, and we lose. And so that means more money in the state coffers for dragging their feet. So to me, it just doesn't sound fair that they have done this once again to us, so they can gain from this. So I think it's important that we move forward and stay focused. Since I was kind of involved in the building aspects the last 10 years ago on the Census Bureau, and it really is one complicated thing, but the state is really blown this out of proportion.
All right, anyone else? Well, we have a motion on the floor in a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to number 5, referrals from the Health Services Committee. Health Services request to amend the county budget in the amount of $3,000 to reflect the receipt of Adirondack Health Institute's funds to cover the cost of field goods products being offered to WIC recipients.
I make a motion we do A and B.
All right, second to that motion. Supervisor Strout, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Let's go on to C then. Request to amend the 2019 county budget in the amount of $398,650 to adjust the preschool program to reflect the rate reconciliations for school years 2015 through 2020. Someone like to make that motion? Supervisor McDevitt, seconded by Supervisor Garrity. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Well, can I
Oh.
discuss?
Yes.
You know, I just do think it's going to be rough because there are other years involved, and you know, coming in and asking for $400,000 more after the fact, it seems like they could do a little bit better job at auditing their claims on a more timely fashion than going back almost 40 years.
It's actually $670,000. This is the state reimbursed portion.
Right. I mean, but still, I think, you know, my displeasure is they can wait 4 years and go back and collect more money. And if we were in tough financial times, which we appear to be heading, not a good thing.
I agree. Supervisor Beatty?
Yeah, I think Supervisor Garrity said it all, but, you know, we are in, knock on wood, some decent times here in Warren County. How about the counties like Washington County? How about the counties that struggle every day to find the money to pay the payroll to keep their county going? And when the state allows vendors to go back 5 years and say, oh, by the way, we think we need to charge you more, I find that offensive. But I find it dangerous to each county budget across the state. I mean, this isn't something to take lightly. We are in a good position to pay it. Thank you. But what about our sister county, Washington County, and Essex County? And even Saratoga is in a good position, so I don't worry about them as much. But you know, there's counties that this really will have a huge effect on. And I don't know, I think we all get frustrated with this. I don't want to belabor it, but thanks, Mr. Garrity, for your points.
I mean, it's
well spoken.
No, you're both correct on that. It's too bad that's how they work. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Office of...
One other thing about that,
Go
while
ahead.
I'm on a roll.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of say in this program.
No.
True.
Early child intervention is handed to us. The only say we have is to write the check. So, you know, and we've discussed that over the years. We've had discussion about that. And nothing against the program, but we don't have a lot of say. You just get the bill.
More than once.
That's right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Garrity. Office for the Aging, request to appropriate funds the amount of $8,946 from budget code A691.00 deferred revenues to various budget codes to move disparate funds into the OFA budget. Someone like to bring that motion forward?
I'll move it.
Supervisor Garrity, seconded by Supervisor Strout. Any discussion? Yes.
I just have one question. What if we say no?
Say no what to what? The
Say
one
no to
be-
this.
The one before, you mean?
Funds?
Yeah, the money.
The payment on preschool special ed.
Right.
I'll give you an example. Oneida County once said no to paying more in Medicaid, which is the same thing. The state requires you to make the payment. They didn't write the check. The state withheld their state aid for every single county department.
Wow.
Or their sale, or the sales tax, they could have.
You're going back to C, or you went back
I
to
guess
C?
he's talking about C, yes.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
because
We're back.
we're on to D now.
I'm sorry, I was still trying to process it. I mean, I can't understand that. I mean, no business could ever survive, even though government's not a business. But no business could survive on getting a bill 4 years later for money that was never budgeted or never thought of and timely factor. So I agree with that. But what happens if we said no?
Oh, they got you.
I think we're dealing with a local school for the handicapped in Queensbury.
Oh, and I'm not knocking that,
Yep.
and I don't have a problem with it, but I was just wondering if we said no, would it set a precedent that maybe they would...
No.
I think they'd find a way to...
I'm not going to waste any more time. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll go on to D then. Someone like to make that motion?
Oh, we made it.
We made it, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 6, referral from the Human Services Committee, Health Services, request to amend the county budget in the amount of $50,000 to reflect receipt of CARA state grant funding.
I'll move it.
All right, Supervisor Garrity, second by Supervisor Strout. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. On to number 7, referral from the Occupancy Tax Coordination Committee, request to appropriate $60,750 from Budget Code A.881, Reserve Occupancy Tax to fund the additional amount of occupancy tax awards given above the amount budgeted for 2020. So I'd like to make that motion. Supervisor McDevitt makes a motion, seconded by Supervisor Molino. Any discussion? Supervisor McGowan.
You know, I appreciate all that goes into this, and I was at that meeting and was just trying to figure out, but we started off with a figure to work with, and we just kept adding on to it. And And after our treasurer, Mike Swan, has, told us that we have to be concerned, once again, we're giving more money that we really don't have, and we're kind of hoping that things, I know we had a good year, but I'm not quite sure what's going to be happening in the future, but we had a budgeted amount that we're going to try to work with, and Dutch did a phenomenal job doing it, but once again, we went a little overboard on giving, the 60,000, so I'm a little concerned.
Okay, Supervisor Garrity.
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we table this till after we have our discussion at Oxy Task Committee.
I'll second that.
Second by Supervisor Beatty. All those in favor of tabling? Aye. Opposed? All right, carried. We'll do that then. We'll move on to number 8. Referrals from the Park Operations and Management Committee. Request to authorize the Superintendent of Public Works to make reimbursements to the Village of Lake George for Charles R. Wood expenditures relating to repair and maintenance of buildings/property repair/maintenance for equipment and other various supplies up to $2,500 per month, and to authorize the county treasurer to make any necessary budget amendments to increase those appropriation codes using funds for Budget Code A.61-07, deferred revenue. Ooh, that's a long one. Gaslight Village parking fees. Someone would like to make that motion? Supervisor Molino, seconded by Supervisor Strauss. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Well, let's try the next one. Request to appropriate funds in the amount of $3,497.50 from Budget Code A.691.07, deferred revenue Gaslight Village parking fees, to Budget Code Charles R. Wood Park repair and maintenance/property, and authorize reimbursement to the Village of Lake George in the same amount for expenses incurred in relation to attendance for the Charles R. Wood Park during the months of October, November, December of 2019. Someone like to make that motion? Supervisor Simpson, seconded by Supervisor Molino.
Can we have discussion?
Certainly. Garrity.
Mr. Hajost, should we be doing this on a more timely basis, or going back 3 months? Does that work for you, the committee?
Yes, when I receive the bills.
But I mean, is that timely enough?
If it is.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 9, referrals from the Public Safety Committee, Office of Emergency Services. A, request to amend the county budget in the amount of $52,761 to carry over unused 2018 State Homeland Security Program grant funds.
I'll move it.
Supervisor Garrity, seconded by Supervisor Molino. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Sheriff. B, request to amend the county budget in the amount of $50,000 to appropriate funds for the purchase of a correctional facility, camera switch, equipment, and software. Someone like to make that motion? Supervisor Strauss, seconded by Supervisor McDevitt. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. C, request to authorize the appropriation of $70,000 from the general fund unappropriated surplus A.909.00 to Budget Code A.3150-250 Sheriff's Correction Division Technical Equipment to return 2019 funds not carried over to the 2020 budget, which are intended for the purchase of correctional facility, camera, switch, equipment, and software.
I'll make a motion on C and D, because it was discussed at budget time.
Yes, it was. All right. Second to that, Mr. Simpson. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. E, request to amend the county budget in the amount of $145,935 to reflect receipt of 2019-20 PSAP grant funding from the New York State Division of Homeland Security.
I'll make E and F, because those are leftover grant funds.
Okay, very good. Someone like to second that. Second by Supervisor Simpson. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 10, referral from the Support Services Committee, Information Technology. Request to appropriate funds totaling $106,330 from the Computer Reserve Fund to various departmental budgets for the purchase of computers and related equipment and software. Supervisor Simpson makes a motion, seconded by Supervisor Garrity. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 11, request items to be discussed by the county administrator. Mr. Moore.
Before I get into the journal reports, if I could, just for posterity, can we clean up the resolution that we did on the census to make it clear that we're not going to contract with Southern Adirondack Library System for that $25,000?
Whatever you say.
You need a motion on that?
Need a motion?
We do, we need to make an amendment to that
All right,
resolution.
Supervisor Beatty will make the amendment, seconded by Supervisor
Yeah,
Strout.
I'll make that amendment, whoever seconded.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you. And the next item is customary each month if you have questions on the journal transfers that were made. Anybody?
All I can say is Tammy won't let you do anything wrong, right?
No, but Tammy and Christy both do a great job on it.
Okay.
Christie, this one's offered.
Okay.
All right, number 12, items to be discussed by the county attorney.
Yes, so this is what I'm going to ask you to request a home rule law for the additional mortgage reporting tax in Warren County, which expires in December of 2020.
Someone like to make that motion? Supervisor McDevitt, seconded by Supervisor Beatty. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Finance Committee action is required on the following items approved by the Personnel and Administration Committee.
I'll move it.
Okay. Second to that? Mr. McDevitt, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Mr. Swan, are we doing anything with the pending items?
Looking at the clock and what we've got to do,
Okay.
I can wait till next month.
Okay, so we'll plan on doing that wait until next month. Thank you. Time for the privilege of the floor. Is there anyone that has something that they wish to bring up? All right, Supervisor Garrity.
Yeah, I know this seems foolish. Could somebody tell me the difference between recusing yourself and abstaining?
That's a good question. What about that, Mr. Moore?
When you recuse yourself, you abstain on the vote.
Is it the same thing?
Same thing.
No.
No?
An abstention is...
Forget what I said.
I would love to answer this.
Mary would like to answer.
Go ahead,
Mary, go ahead.
So when you recuse yourself, you're supposed to recuse yourself from the discussion. So if you have a conflict, you're actually supposed to get up from the table and
Well,
leave.
that's what I thought. You're supposed to
That's
leave the room.
recusing yourself. When you're not voting, you're abstaining from the vote.
Recusing is if you think you have a potential conflict of interest because you're involved in some way,
Right.
then you are recusing yourself because you are
But aren't you
saying-
supposed to step away from the table?
You're supposed to step away from the
I
room.
was told that.
Yes.
By our
Yeah,
attorney.
yeah.
That's the only thing I'm asking. Abstaining, you don't vote on something.
Correct, and you
But if you
abstain from
recuse,
the
you're
vote.
supposed to step
Well,
away from the table,
I
yes or
was
no?
told that abstaining means that for whatever reason, you're not voting on this,
Right.
okay? And it may be a lack of knowledge, it may be something else. And I was told by, I think it was Larry Pouterwitz involved with, his son on the board
Yeah.
of trustees with the
Right.
college, that in things that deal with the financing of the college, that I would recuse myself, meaning that there is an omission of some involvement that I have with the topic before me. I've never been told that I had to step away from the conversation. I was told to use recusal as the...
See, I heard it just the opposite from a
Right.
different attorney.
All right, Supervisor Leggett, and then we're...
The thing, Mr. Chairwoman, coming back from the recent NISAC conference and doing one of the core courses about ethics and such, we did go over recusals and abstentions. And when you do recuse, you're supposed to say why you recuse. I have a financial interest in whatever it may be. If there is a discussion about it, it is best to leave the table. But from my interpretation from sitting there and listening to the attorney that was giving the presentation, that for example, it comes up before the Board of Supervisors on Friday morning, and there's something about the Adirondack Community College, Adirondack there. There's really not much discussion. There's not much need for Supervisor Stroud to get up and leave at that time, but he can state his reason for recusing himself at that point.
So you don't have to step away.
What you want to avoid is any appearance of influence over the vote. So if there is a discussion going on, one way or another, your presence at the table or on the board may influence the others around you.
so it's best to step away and not be present there. But if there is let's say, a lack of discussion going on, and it's just coming into a, say, direct vote, then you can stay there. So,
Thank you all for the clarification, Supervisor Strzok.
if okay with that, and I would ask Amanda to amend my recusal by adding to the minutes that I am on the Board of Trustees for SUNY Adirondack. Would you?
I don't have a problem, and I'm sure she'll take care of that.
All right, thank you.
All right, motion to adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry, Supervisor Sieber.
Thank you. I just had two quick things for privilege before. One, perhaps, Ryan, we could get the handout or the information from NISAC from the ethics discussion. He said he did have them on request to talk specifically about, whether you recuse or you abstain and for the reasons, to do so. It was incredibly helpful during those couple of hours to hear exactly how to follow procedures. So that might be helpful for all of us.
I'll make that request.
Thank you. My other interest was we talked about the funding and the approval for whether it be the $398,000 or $670,000 as it relates to prospects. Supervisor McGowan asked, what happens if we vote no? And, in the past we used to refer a lot of these issues either over to legislative, or we have our county administrator write a letter or talk with NISAC about perhaps a resolution that we could send to the state talking about our concerns and the impact that it has for our county. Is that something that we could do on an issue like this?
Sure.
If the board decides to, Supervisor Garrity brought up a good point that here we're responsible for paying the bill, but we're all just sitting back and saying, yes, we'll pay the bill. At least if we put it on the record, and express our concerns and the impact it has on our community, perhaps that would shed some more light on the issue.
Got three things come to mind. One, in terms of what would happen if you voted no, are you voting against paying the bill? Because if you vote against paying the bill, then we have the issue potentially of state aid getting withheld, because we have to pay the bill. We have no choice. If you're voting against this particular resolution, which is to give the department enough expense authority to pay the bill, that'll result in a finding on our audit if we overspend an account. That's why we do the resolution to amend the budget, to add that expense authority. And the third piece is if it's an issue with the whole concept of doing this 5-year reconciliation, absolutely that would be appropriate for legislative and rules.
Right. Thank you both. And now I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Supervisor Beatty, second by Supervisor Simpson. All in favor? Aye. Okay, it's up to Dennis now.
John, I was